Hi everyone, this is Yuan Lin. I'm your clinical teaching assistant for this course. Um, so for this debriefing video, we are going to go through round 2 result, the report together, and see what are the things your team need to pay attention. I strongly suggest your team can watch the Industry 1 debriefing video as well. I will post both videos because each industry may run into different problems or different things need to pay attention. It will be good information for you guys to keep in mind if you run into those situations. Um, so again, do not feel bad if your team did not perform well for the first 2 practice rounds because this is just the practice and for you guys to learn what is a capstone and also be prepared for the competition round. And then the competition round will reset on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. All right, so let's take a look of industry 2. How you guys doing for this round 2? Again, the first 3 ratios I want to point out: ROS, ROA, and ROE, which are return on asset, return on sales, return on asset, and return on equity. So return on sales, now this measure provides insight into how much profit being produced per dollar of sales. So an increasing of ROS, it will indicate that a company is growing more efficiently. However, if your ROS ratio decreased, then that indicates that a company is growing more. That means a sign of in the financial troubles. So if your team ROS is going decreasing compared to last round, then your team need to pay attention. So ROA is return on asset, which reveals like how much profit a company earns for every dollar of its asset. And ROE is return on equity that tests how efficiently a company's management uses investors' money, and it shows whether management is growing in a company's value at an acceptable rate. So again, if your team have the negative ratios on those 3 important indicators, make sure to reassess your team's strategy. Again, to look into finance and also team production and all the aspects to make sure that you guys have a very good ratio for the next round. So for uh, profit, here I point out profit is one of the important uh, measure for this capsing. So good profit is important, and also the emergency loan. In previous round, I did not see any emergency loan, but in this round, the team Ari run into emergency loan. So once again, I want to explain to this video to you guys again, as I just explained in the previous Industry 1's video. If your team run into emergency loan, that is because your company run out of cash, and then the emergency loan kick in automatically by Capstone. So there are a few problems of typical problems that a team run into emergency loan. First is because your team have excessive inventory, and about 70% of the teams who run into emergency loan belong to this group. So if there is excessive inventory, then that means you guys have to pay more to store the inventory. It's extra cost. Then your team may end up paying more in the interest to the emergency loan, right? Okay, second category is because the unfunded capacity and automation purchase. So sometimes if your company make a big investment in plant or equipment and automation, then but if you forgot to raise money, then your team may get into emergency loan as well. But don't panic. Um, please um, get with your team to analyze what went wrong, and also to see, do you have excessive inventory, or did you have enough capital. So again, your team need to just try your best to cover the make sure you pay off the emergency loan, like for team every is $2,000. Here it's not really a huge amount, okay, but emergency loan you have to pay a very high interest rate, well, extremely high, because that is 7.5% higher than the current debt rate. So again, don't panic and then just get into with your teams. And next I want to point out is the sales. And then from this chart, we can see that Team Andrew have the most sales compared to other teams. Usually, if your team have more sales, that indicating more market share. So let's take a look of the market share here. As I mentioned before, Team Andrew have more sales, and then in this pie, like all the companies are dividing this pie, right? Everyone wants to get a piece of pie in this market. So Team Andrew have the most. So here in this chart on the left is a percent of sales. I want to point out three teams. Team Baldwin, Digby, and Garrett. Your team may need to pay a little bit attention on the profit, since other teams are having profits. So you need to see, did you did you did your team have too much maybe inventory left, or what are the places you can cut expenses, things like that. But I'm gonna explain later what are the things your team may run into so that there's no profit. Okay, so on this page you can see the stock and bond, and again, this is the one of the ways to raise the capitals, like issue stock and issue bonds. You can do that. And from previous round, see the team varies. Since your team has been doing well, like maybe like have more profit or increase of sales, that's why the stock price is going up. However, for the team Garrett, your team need to pay attention here. And also EPS is earning per share. It's just indicators of how much the stock going up and down. If it's going down, like negative, going up is positive. So this is one of the indicator. And also dividend. I see some of the teams already start paying dividend to the stakeholders. Of course, all your stakeholders like to get paid by dividend if you are doing well. But this is not really recommended for the companies that having the negative cash flow or not making profit. However, if your team is making profit, you think you can pay some dividend to your stakeholders, that would be great. Okay, now let's take a look of the financial summary. So for the financial summary, you will see the cash flow statement, balance sheet, and income statement. So for the cash flow, so financial summary, the cash flow statement that indicate the movement of cash through the organization, right, including the operating, investing, and finance activities. So the annual cash flow statement shows the change in amount of cash from the previous year. So the cash flow statement also will indicate the expected change at the end of the upcoming year. So here I want to point out a couple things. One is depreciation. As you guys all know, like once you invest in the equipment, invest in the plant, it will depreciate every year. And this is how much your equipment depreciate. So again, if your team is not fully utilizing all the equipment, then it's negative cash flow, right? Your company is paying money every year, depreciate everything, right? And also next is inventory. And you can see from this chart, you can see some of the teams are paying a lot of inventories to store the excessive product that they cannot sell. Because if you cannot sell, it wound up in the warehouse and it takes money to store them and you cannot sell. And I want to point out Team Andrews had a pretty good projection. They had they did not pay a penny for the inventory, but it's a really good thing that paying zero. I would say yes, but no, because if you are not paying inventory, I mean just a little bit inventory is okay, left over. But if you are not paying inventory, that means some of the potential uh, that your team probably can potentially sell more, but since you guys not producing that much, then that a potential sale will goes to other teams. Okay, so next I want to mention is the dividend paid. Again, as I mentioned in the previous slides, some of the team already paying the dividends to their stakeholder already. Again, make sure your team is making profit before you do this move. Okay, and net profit. Again, I mentioned many times that profit is pretty important because in a balanced scorecard of Capstone, they measure four categories. One is financial, internal business process, customer and learning and growth. And under financial factors, profitability is one of the factor that they measure. So that's why it's very important. They also measure your leverage, your stock price under the financial sector. So those are very important. Okay, next. In this page, you will see the product analysis, which is the product versus capacity. And I would say most of your teams have done a good job that utilizing the equipment or plans that you guys um, uh, invest. However, I want to point out two teams like Team Digby and Team Garrett. You can see that here's the capacity that your team have, that your team spend money to buy those things. However, you are not reaching the full potential here. So that means, as I mentioned before, everything depreciate, right? If you're not fully utilizing the capacity, then it's negative cash flow, including the team Garrett here. So again, get with your team to find out why this has happened and make plans for in a competition round. Okay, before competition round. Okay, so this page I would say is a very important, and then I would really always visit this plant information page to get other teams information, including who are your competitors, what other product they have, and all the information is listed here. So why this page is important, I want to point out a couple things. Number one is that you can see some of the team already introducing new product, right? You can tell from here, like Team Digby, they introducing the new product Dino, right? And at the same, and also Team Hopper also have some new product. They introduced new product probably in the round one already, like. Okay, and then you also can see some of the team retire some of the product, like Team Avine retired two product, or maybe they only have three product here. So and Another one is inventory. As I mentioned before, see team Andrew sold out all of their inventories. But for the teams have excessive, I would say more quantity of excessive inventory, you need to pay attention. You don't want that um, amount to go bigger and bigger. Then eventually your team, you cannot sell those things, those products. Then you may end up with emergency loan, which is the situation most of the team don't want to get into, including team um, Airy. Some of the inventories are pretty high here. Okay, now another information I want to point out is the material cost, the labor cost. You want to make sure that the material cost you keep it low, but at the same time, not you keep your material cost as a reasonable cost, and also the labor cost um, at a good rate, because later on in the last page I'm gonna mention to you guys about the turnover rate, that it may related to how much you pay to your workers, and did you pay for the um, training for them, and so on and so forth. I can explain later about the labor cost. um, Next one is the second shift overtime. You can see some of the team have the second shift, and for some product, some of the team they don't have second shift. So is it good to have second shift? Then it's gonna be your team's call. Um, Second shift. One thing I want to mention is that um, it's the cost of the second shift is gonna be 150% 150% more than the first shift labor cost. So if you really want to have a second shift, then that's extra cost. However, the benefit side of second shift is that you can produce um, more product and then sell it to sell. Next one is the automation and automation. Some of the product you can see some of the team have automation 6.7, some of the product teams have automation 1. So higher automation means machines make the product. So if you want to produce more and have a higher production, then your automation will be higher. And then lower of the automation, that means you use the labor, and then but please remember that the labor charge is pretty expensive. At the same time, if you want to do higher automation, then you have to invest a little bit more. So your team need to weigh pros and cons and decide. Next one is the plant utilization, and you can see some of the team utilize the plant over 100 is a good thing. I would say it's okay if it's over 100. Ideally, if you can utilize plant about 140 to 180%, that would be great. That is the best scenario. But if your team utilization is still under 100, then your team need to do something about it and to increase that number. Now, when we come to this market segment analysis, there are 5 market: traditional, low end, and then so on and so forth. So I'm going to introduce you guys for every single segment. So when you come to this chart, the most important thing is customer buying criteria. Traditional segment, the customers want to focus on more on the age, right? It's 47% of the importance. It's 2 years, and then price is about 19 to 29. So if you then you can see here some of the team's product is out of the circle. Please keep in mind that if your team's product is out of the circle, that means your team really cannot sell a lot of those things, because it's not within customers' expectations and it's not in the ideal spot. So it's very difficult to sell and make profit. So those teams need to pay attention to your product. Okay, so I mentioned before, price is 19 to 29. So if we see here, some of the teams is already over the price range, right? If if over the price range, the customers will most likely um, not buy it. Okay, if over $5 extra or below the price range, then it's very difficult to sell. Next, I want to point out it's a sales budget and also promotion budget. Um, Again, some of the team just spend $300. Some of the team spend a good amount. So it's up to your team to decide how much is good amount for those sales and promotion budget. However, what your team want to reach is very high customer awareness and high customer satisfaction. Okay. Now for low end, the price range is lower, right? And also $14 to $24. Age is about 7 years. And you can see some of the product is out of the circle here. So if you are the team, pay attention to those things. It's not within the circle. And majority of the team actually hit the ideal spot. That is really good because that's where the customer will buy, and then you make the most sales. So again, look at some of the teams at here. Their price is 25, 26, and then though especially for low end customers, they will not buy a very high price product. And then of course the customer's satisfaction will be low because they're paying much higher price than they should be, right? Okay, same thing for high-end customers, high-end customers. So you can see the positioning is most important. Age is also important because for those group of customer, they want to have constantly new things coming out of every year. For example, like Apple, most of the customer want to have a very fast change, also good technology positioning, their performance and size. So you can think that way. So again, some of the product are a lot out of range. Um, and here I want to just point out a very interesting situation here. Indigo, their price is lower, but you see here, actually high-end customers they are not really focused on the price. As long as it's good and it's fast, they will buy it. So even though they offer relatively lower price, they cannot sell more than the Atom. Why? And you can see that Team Atom have the revision date is September, and then Indigo team, this team is coming out the product November 27th. So that's why probably this Atom team will sell more because product come out first. And also the performance and size, you guys are very similar. Again, besides this reason, the customer accessibility and promotions are very important. So some of the details you need to pay attention, especially for high end, they care about age and positioning. So again, for performance, same. They focus on the service life, which is 43% importance. And this product jack need to pay attention. It's out of the circle. So again, those the performance customers they focus on the reliability, the hours to use, which is MTBF measures in hours as mean time before failure. So this is MTBF. So size, again, those two product. So actually after this five market segment analysis, I want to also point out at last, you need to see the market size, how much product you think the market actually will buy, and also think about the demand growth rate. So what you need to calculate is in 2023, then times the growth rate, and then plus the regional market size, you can find out what is the market is going to demand for the product number of product. So this is a pretty good indicator here. For every actually market, you can do the same thing, like calculate the growth rate. Okay, so for this page, you can see most of the product sell in a traditional and low-end market, and then but other teams all meet the market. Okay, so for this chart, you can see Team Andrews, Team Irvine, what are the things they are focusing, what are the products they focusing on, and then they sell. It's a very clear to see from this chart. Okay, lastly, I want to show the perceptual map. It's the low end, traditional, performance, high end, and size. So I'm very pleased to see that a majority of your product actually hit or near the ideal spot. So when you hit the ideal spot, you get the most sales. If you are further away from the ideal spot, then you probably will have more difficult time to sell. Okay. So as round goes by, like round 2, 3, 4, 5 to round 8, those perceptual map were shifted from left corner to right corner, right down corner here, because customers always want product that is high quality and low price. Then that's where the market is driven to the right down. Okay. Lastly is a customer module, as I mentioned before, that you need to pay attention if the turnover rate is high. Did you give workers training? Did you give sales compensation, retirement, retention? Those are important things for your organization to grow and reduce the turnover rate. Because if your turnover rate is too high, then it's a very difficult. It's gonna be cost a lot of money to train the new employees, right? And also, the new workers also takes time to get used to the work and things like that. Okay, so lastly, I want to point out that I would recommend you guys to read the members guide on about the capstone one more time. And I especially want to emphasize the page 33 and beyond, which is the strategies. There are 6 basic strategies your team can focus on. So like a broad cost leader, broad differentiator, niche cost leader, niche differentiator, so on and so forth. There are 6 basic strategies. I mean, if you have a company, you cannot really focus on everything, right? You have to have your selling point, you have to have your strategy. So what strategy your team want to use? You can go over these 6 basic strategies and pick the ones your team really want to go for. So thank you so much for listening to my debriefing. I hope all the tips will be helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I'm here to help you. So I wish you your team have very good luck to in this competition. All right, thank you.